We're starting to see the 2026 Harley-Davidson show up in dealers. Technically just the carryover models. Some of the new models that have been alluded to, we will not see until January. But are the carryover models just paint changes? Or are there changes made but not revealed? Every year we find a few changes on these Harleys. Harley usually doesn't talk about it. It may be something small, like how a wire is routed on the bike, or there may be a part that is upgraded from version A to version B. I know when I got my 23.5 CVO, one of the most frustrating things for me as a YouTuber is when I turned the bike on in accessory mode, it would stop trickle charging. Pretty frustrating if you're trying to do video of the infotainment system and your battery continues to drain while you're filming it. On the 2024s, they fixed that. So now when the infotainment system is on, it continues to trickle charge. But for me, I have to resort to alligator clips and plug it into the starter motor to keep my bike charging while I'm filming that infotainment system. When the 2025s came out, we discovered that they went to one knock sensor instead of two. Not really sure why, but it did reduce a part there and some wiring. But it certainly didn't help us with this coil wire issue. So we have the 2026 Street Glide and Road Glide, standard models thus far. And if we look at the coil wire harness, the first thing I noticed is the offset zip tie appears to be in place. So here's the back of the Christmas tree, and then the wire is scooted over quite a bit. This seems to create a more gentle bend in that wire. And if we look at it from the bottom, you can see it comes in off to the side now, but those wires are still pretty thin and there's still a good bend, but there is no zip tie present. So if you look at mine, you can see it looks pretty much the same, though mine comes at a more aggressive angle because I don't have that offset zip tie. But the wire thickness looks the same, and frankly, after having issues with it, this still makes me nervous. All right, one of the other things I noticed looking at the new 2026 model was the back of the frame here. So there's this big opening now that allows the harness to go in and the starter motor wire to go through, so they travel through this big opening. The edges look very rounded and a lot less sharp than on the previous models. So this looks to be a significant change in the frame design. So if we look at my bike, you can see we have two openings here and the edges are fairly sharp. And then you can see here there's a gap here with sharp edges as well. So all of that's been eliminated in this new design. The next change I noticed had to do with this on top of the transmission case. I don't know what this thing is. It's right above the gear position sensor, which is still a plastic cover. I really wish they consider updating that. But this is a whole new shape that was not there before, and this is just a hollow entry. To me, this is going to collect water, but I have no idea what this is for. On mine, you can see we have a plug there that's flush and up above on top of that tranny. But this looks to be something that's just going to collect water. Another possible change may be with the brake lines. The Harley-Davidson technician that was putting this bike together, he felt that the brake lines were a more narrow diameter. So I took this photo and visually I can't tell. I think I need a dial caliper handy to figure that out. But I'm not an HD technician and he really felt that they looked like a more narrow diameter. So would that improve brake performance or just a part number change? Really not sure. All right, the last thing I noticed were the switches. The switches just seemed to feel different. They had a different texture to them, and they have a more significant click, which was really welcome. So as you press the buttons, you could really feel a click, something that is much improved from my 23.5 CVO. I really like the feel of them. But unfortunately, the ignition switch remains on top where it's easy to accidentally hit while you're riding and then kill all power to the bike. All right, the biggest change that I've found thus far on these 2026 models is the Skyline OS version. And we're now seeing 5054D. And before, we had 4125D as the current version. So we have a new version of the Skyline OS. And I went through all of the menus and I could not find any changes. However, I did find that the hardware part number had changed. It now ends in a B. So when my 23.5 came out, it ended in 90. And when the 2024 models came out, it was changed to letter A, which means there was one revision. But with the 2026s, we are now on revision B. And I can tell you I had a viewer reach out to me with the 2024 who got his infotainment system replaced because his was not working. And his was also ending in a B, and it also had this version of the Skyline OS. So thanks, Jesse, for reaching out and giving me a heads up about this new version. And if we go to the Harley-Davidson OEM parts page, we can see that the revision A is now replaced by revision B. So who knows what changes are in that hardware, but I could not find any changes in the software. So my guess is there are changes in the hardware and the software had to be updated to support it. So what would those changes be? Well, if I had to guess, it was the Wi-Fi chips or the Bluetooth chips. Because I can tell you, Jesse tells me it connects all the time and really fast to his Bluetooth devices. And when I did a video call with him and went through his system, I noticed that it seemed to connect immediately. So maybe there are some improvements with this infotainment system, or maybe there isn't any improvements to the hardware at all, and it's just a revision change. But why would the software also update? If I open up my HD app and click on my bike, I can see that the software version is still 4125D. It's nice that they've updated the screen, so it shows you the latest version and when it was released, and what you have installed and when that was released. So the last official update we have was January 27 of 2025. So I suspect about the same time in January 2026, we're going to see a software update. I also suspect the update will actually have a newer version number than what we're seeing on the 2026s. Because the 2026 model, while the Skyline OS version is newer, I can't find any changes. So I bet we will see some feature updates, some menu changes as we get to 2026, and we'll see it with a new version, newer than this one, on the 2026s, available for everyone. Looking forward to it. Subscribe and stay tuned, as you know I'll be on top of it. My first look at a 2026 model. And there are changes to it, as there is every year. I think it would be really nice if Harley would just post what they're changing. I know there might be a few changes that are pretty small and pretty minor, but there are a few that might be worth upgrading, if I just knew about it. So these are the changes I noticed right away. Maybe you've seen some changes I didn't mention. If you did, put it in the comments. But please stay tuned to the channel and subscribe because you know I'll be on top of it. And as January is about to be here, we'll soon have some new models to take a look at. I really hope you found this information useful. And if you did, please share it with someone else. But until next time, in the Friction Zone.